State versus state, who wins the war? All right, guys, place your bets. Who do you think is going to win? There's really only a couple options, really. California, Texas, Florida, yeah, New York. I would 100% agree with this. Maybe like Virginia. I don't know. This is probably the only four. I don't think New York has any shot of winning. Florida, I don't think. I really think it's between California and Texas, but we'll see.
It's an all-out battle royale in the United States. Each of the 50 states have splintered into countries of their own, and now they're all looking for a fight. But when it comes to the winner, there can only be one. There will be no alliances in this battle, with each state truly fending for itself.
Okay, fair enough. There's no alliances.
With that being said, we start with a true titan of the US, Texas. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and that's certainly the case when it comes to the state's sheer strength. Texas has over 166,000 military members that call the state home. Over 104,000 of those people are part of...
You know what's crazy about Texas, though? And this is from somebody that comes from California. It's a little bit of context. I've lived in California like my whole life until I moved to Texas. Let me tell you a difference. In Texas, people are specifically proud to be from Texas. People are very proud of, they consider themselves, I would go so far as to think that people from Texas consider themselves Texans before Americans. Like, they're like, I'm from Texas. Fuck yeah, Texas rules. The rest of you can suck my dick. That's basically like Texas. And like, people are very proud to be from Texas. And like, I think they really do have that. In California, no one gives a fuck about California. Literally nobody in California is like, yeah, I'm so proud to be like Californian. That's like me. I feel that's my identity, is I'm a Californian. Nobody, literally nobody from California gives a shit about like actually like California itself and like California culture. People are not proud to be from America, are not proud to be from California, but people from Texas are proud to be from Texas. And I think that if Texas actually did go to war with California, a bunch of civilians would sign up. They 100%. I think they would be like, yeah, I'm going to defend my home. Like, fuck that. Like, every single person would, I think. Not every single person, but like most of the, I think a lot of civilians would compared to California.
The Army. Of those 104,000 Army units, the National Guard numbers around 19,000 members.
Let me just give you an example, okay? Being from Texas, do you know how many people have like fucking Lone Stars and like Texas flags? Like, they literally have like a flagpole with like a Texas flag on it, and they just have big ass Lone Stars like on their barns, on everything, like big fucking bronze Lone Star, and then like the Texas flag. Tons of people have that in Texas. I see it all the time. In California, nobody runs a California flag. Literally nobody. I've never seen it. It's only like official buildings, like California state buildings. So you'll see the American flag. It's the one with a bear on it, by the way. It's like a fucking bear.
Who maintain 117 armories in 102 communities.
Like, dude, I went for a drive the other day. I went for a drive the other day with my mom, and like there's people, like there's neighbor, like I have neighbors that they just have like a fucking flag. It's like a giant banner in front of their house, and all it says is, "You missed me," and then it just says like Trump on it. It's like, "You missed." It's like a big ass fucking banner in front of their house, and it's not even just one person. Like, I've seen like so many of these like "you missed me" banners just like fucking everywhere. It's so funny.
Throughout Texas. Add to that an additional 5,500 Marines, and you have a powerful land force. Guarding the Texas coast, you have over 13,000 units from both the Navy and the Coast Guard.
Okay, sick.
And if that's not enough, there's over 42,000 Air Force personnel who also contribute to this powerhouse of a state.
You know what the problem would be, though, is so it's a little bit lucky in this scenario because there's no alliances allowed. But I feel like if this was a real life scenario, that California would try to actually ally with Mexico, because California has beef with Texas and so does Mexico. I feel like they would team up on Texas. What do you guys think? What do you think of my analysis? I think they would. Mexico would want to reconquer them. Yeah, Mexico, historically, Mexico and Texas not friends. So yeah, I can see California actually allying with Mexico in like an actual like no holds barred, like if you could ally. But then again, I think a lot of the surrounding states would actually ally with Texas. I think so. So I don't think anyone. Well, I don't know. I guess Oregon. I don't know. With Oregon even allied with California, like I don't even know. In fact, there's like people. There's like an entire movement in Oregon and North California. They want to split off. I think North California, Middle California, and Oregon are more likely to say like fuck California than like even Austin. I feel like Austin is like considered like that's where like all of the, you know, the hipster Texan people are. I don't think Austin would split off of Texas.
The Lone Star State's strategy then becomes simple. Defend itself using the National Guard and Navy while sending its Army and Air Force personnel out to attack others. It's a sound strategy, aided in no small part by Texas's geography. To the west of the state lie the Guadalupe Mountains. While not the largest or highest mountain range in the U.S., the range does include Guadalupe Peak, which has an 8,751-foot summit. Those mountain ranges will help Texas defend against incursions from the west as its army moves throughout the U.S. Also, much of far west...
You'd probably get New York. New York would probably team up with California. Florida would team up with Texas.
West Texas is covered by the Chihuahuan Desert, stretching throughout portions of Arizona.
But then again, this is Battle Royale. This isn't no alliances allowed in this scenario.
Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico as well. The desert is North America.
I honestly feel like aside from Texas, California, New York, and Florida, the ones that he highlighted, I think everyone else is just fucked. If this is a Battle Royale, everyone's dead except for these 4 states.
America's largest.
I really think so.
250,000 square miles.
I think it's over.
Texas is also ready to fuel its armies. The U.S. Energy Information Administration says that there are 20,309 million barrels of crude oil in the state, with those who aren't on fighting duty tasked with getting as much of that oil out of the ground as quickly as possible to keep the state's soldiers equipped with the fuel they'll need. Finally, there's the Texan X Factor. Its citizens. As of 2021, there were 1,006,555 registered firearms in Texas.
And I think a lot of these people would be willing to fight for Texas, or at least serve as like a home guard. I think so. If California attacked Texas, it would be way harder if Texas attacked California. In terms of resistance from the population, the Californian people would just like roll over and die, honestly. They would surrender immediately. Almost all of them, except for like, I guess people from the far north or like people from like middle California. Maybe you might get some resistance in like San Bernardino, Riverside, like kind of like east of like Los Angeles, like southeast. You might get a little bit of resistance there, but I think they're more likely to just join, honestly. I think the people from there are more likely to just join, just be like, take us with you, like I guess surrender, like. Yeah, like I feel like every inch that like let's assume that like California actually marched an army and they were actually here and they were like actually attacking, they would get counterattacked in every town, right? It wouldn't be like how California would get rolled, honestly. If Texas walked into California, it would be army against army, and like the civilians would just like give up. Basically, they'd be like they'd all run, like, you know, go to like camp, like refugee camps and stuff like that. But if California tried to roll Texas, every single person would be fighting them back, I think.
Making the state's
almost. I'd say it's probably like if I had to guess, I'd say like at least 50% of the civilians would fight back.
The most armed in the U.S. Texas has about twice as many guns as the second-place state, Florida, with 518,725, and that armed citizenry will be called upon if any other state is foolish enough to try and invade. Add to that an already growing appetite for independence in Texas, with 33% saying they'd support Texas.
Wait, really? 33% of Texans say like, yeah, fuck it, like let's leave. Like, what?
Splitting off as an
Is that real?
Country, and you have a state that's well armed with citizens who are willing to fight.
That's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying, is that the citizens would fight.
An early frontrunner emerges,
and if you think that wouldn't work, just look at the Middle East. Look at how fucking hard everyone has a time of like taking over small villages and like because they all have AKs and shit, right?
If another powerful state can increase their military by overtaking multiple states quickly, Texas could be in real trouble. So let's take a look at Texas's first move. Advancing quickly to the west, Texas puts New Mexico in its crosshairs.
Yeah, I gotta take space. Gotta take a buffer zone out there.
Militaristically,
California.
the state has no chance.
Smart. That's what I would
Just
take
over
first.
17,000 personnel
100% I'd take New Mexico first if I was Texas.
are stationed in New Mexico, with only about 30
California probably takes... Does Pearl Harbor still have a lot of boats? They do, right? They have a lot of boats in fucking Hawaii, right? Military bases in Hawaii. California probably takes Hawaii first. Hawaii then Arizona. Hawaii is free. If you can take over Hawaii, you get all their boats. So that might be worth it, honestly. But the problem is it's so far. Like, they would have to go all the way down here in order to actually stage their... The biggest benefit that California has is they have like a big ass fucking... San Diego is crazy in terms of like military. They have like a fuck ton of military in San Diego. Would it be worth it for them to say? Yeah, probably. It'd probably be worth it because it would take too long. Okay, if California sends their boats south first, then Hawaii can attack them. So they probably attack Hawaii first, take those boats, and then go around to get to here. But even then, like, look how little of the space you could even take. With like you could only maybe take like Houston and like, you know, kind of these coastal cities. It would be really hard to like actually take Texas from the sea. Whereas look how big California is. You can go fucking everywhere.
3,500 of those being Army and Marines. Texas's ground forces are easily able to overwhelm them. The state
Yeah, Arizona's cooked in this. It's not even close.
does have a solid air force with around 14,000 personnel. But again, Texas is able to overcome
She doesn't know the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific aren't connected. Yeah, I mean, I guess could you get boats through the canal? Like, could you get like the big boats through the canal? Probably not, actually. You're right. The bigger like aircraft carriers and stuff wouldn't get through the canal. You would have to sail those ones all the way fucking around. I know they're not connected. I know that they're connected by the Panama Canal.
this. Its air force is 3 times the size of New Mexico's. That air force also allows Texas
Yeah, they'd have to go all the way fucking around. Right. They'd have to go around like past Chile.
to easily navigate the portions of the Chihuahuan Desert that run through the state, making this fight an easy victory for Texas. New Mexico is out of the running early.
That's true. Texas could blockade the Gulf before they even get there. You're right. They would know that was happening before it even happened, and then they would send the boats like to the south part of the Gulf to block it off.
To Texas. Oklahoma is next. Oklahoma is a minnow.
I don't know how many boats Texas has though. Are there a lot in Texas? I actually don't know.
Compared to their southern neighbor, but they've got a few tricks up their sleeve. Initially, Oklahoma's roughly 21,000 soldiers aren't able to stand up to the might of the Texan army. But Oklahoma can take advantage of its own geography. Its soldiers try to funnel the Texans into the expansive Red Beds plains and high plains, leaving them open to bombing runs by the over 10,000 Air Force personnel stationed in the state. But that tactic doesn't take Oklahoma too far, especially once its Air Force is confronted by Texas's superior aerial might. Granted, the Arbuckle Mountains to the central south of the state forced Texas to invade from the southwest, again landing in Great Plains territory.
Ooh, that's good
but
defenses,
there's
actually,
nothing
Oklahoma.
can do in terms of sheer manpower. Another state down. Texas continues its
Yeah, Texas
rampage
is
to the
kicking
east,
ass.
turning its attention to Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Its tactic is becoming clear. Create a buffer region of states that surround it,
Smart.
making it even more difficult for other states to invade Texas
You gotta turn
itself.
them into Ukraine.
Arkansas goes down quickly. It only has around 8,000 total active military personnel, who are no match for a Texan military that's more than 13 times its size.
Also, Texas has more weebs than everybody else, so we have a lot more Chunies on the battlefield. That's for sure.
Louisiana's 30,000
Lot of
soldier
gamers.
military put up more of a fight, though the state also offers Texas an opportunity to use its navy. Louisiana's long coast bordering the Gulf of Mexico is only defended by about 2,400 Navy and Coast Guard personnel. Easy pickings for the same Texan group of over 13,000.
Taken.
Finally, there's Mississippi. The state has the same problems as Louisiana, as its
Ooh, but you get the river though.
installed military numbers around 25,000, and it has a coast leading into the Gulf of Mexico. The key difference? It has a much larger Navy and Coast Guard. The state holds out for a while with its 5,300 personnel fighting valiantly against Texas, but with just 10,300 Army and Marines on the...
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of weebs in Texas. It's actually fucking crazy. I would go so far as to say that the weebs in Texas are even more weeby than the ones from California. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like a lack of things to do or something in Texas, but like people are super weeb. Like I've seen, there's like anime billboards out here. There's like entire shops like that are dedicated to like making Itasha. I've seen more Itashas in Texas than I have in California.
Ground, Mississippi's Navy will ultimately be left out to sea without a friendly port to return to. So Texas just occupies Mississippi's Navy until its ground forces can take the state. With 5 states down, Texas takes a moment to consolidate, while 2 other challengers are consolidating their own power in the East and West.
All right,
we'll start in the West, where California is throwing its weight around. With 32 military bases, including Naval Base San Diego, which is the home port of the powerful Pacific Fleet, California has the strongest military presence in the United States, with 213,600 total soldiers.
Shit.
Break it down, and you get 34,600 Army soldiers, 61,500 Marines, 29,100 Air Force personnel, 5,600 Coast Guard members, and the California X Factor, the Pacific Fleet, which includes 82,900 sailors.
Dang.
California quickly puts that fleet to work, focusing on one of the most isolated states in the U.S.
There it is. They're going to take Hawaii. They're going to take Hawaii for the boats.
Hawaii has sat back and watched as Texas completed its...
Yeah, you would take Hawaii because you don't want to deal with them. You want to, because the thing is if you have your boats in California and because the boats are useless, like because of the geography, they're useless. You need to like take those boats. If that's like your strongest thing is like your Navy, you have to utilize those boats. And if you send your boats south to go around to like go to the east side, then you're kind of fucked from here. If Hawaii goes for it,
it had hoped to
take them out first
until the other states had weakened themselves, defending itself by virtue of being nearly 2,400 miles away from San Francisco. Nestled in the Pacific Ocean, it has a fairly decent military presence of 54,300 soldiers, divided across several islands. But they're not a match for California's powerful Navy.
Because California can afford to go all in. Because even if California went all in with their Navy to like go all in on Hawaii, the other navies aren't going to reach in time.
The Pacific Fleet is sent out, buffeting Hawaii from every angle. Soon sounds the death knell for the Aloha State. Constant missile bombardments coupled with strikes from aircraft taking off from the USS Nimitz overwhelm the islands before they can become a major
Californians trying to take land in Hawaii. Tell me something new.
threat. California has its first victory. Soon, California's land-based forces of the Army, Marines, and Air Force are moving east across the U.S. Nevada is the next obvious target. An easy victory for California, as Nevada only has 4,800 Marines and Army soldiers compared to California's 96,000.
Yeah, the thing is though, Nevada fucking sucks. Nevada sucks ass.
Still, the 50,000 square mile Mojave Desert presents an obstacle. Though it's the smallest desert in North America, the Mojave is also the driest and represents a large portion of flat land the California Army has to navigate.
See, I don't know if that's in play. Like, are nukes in play? I don't know if they are. That does change a lot if nukes are in play.
So while being
if the nukes are counted as part of that state, then that changes a lot
from
of the
large,
equation, I think.
Nearly 13,000 strong Air Force stationed in Nevada. But California was smart. It has an Air Force of its own, 29,100 strong, and it uses
Nukes
those craft to bomb Las Vegas, Reno, and everywhere in between to take Nevada. That tactic of supporting an army with overwhelming air power serves California well as it attacks Oregon. By this time, the Pacific Fleet has started to make its way back from attacking Hawaii, and it's helpful in taking the Beaver State. California barely has to put any boots on the ground. Oregon's 32,600 military personnel quickly fall to the state's combined aerial and naval power. Meanwhile, Texas has turned its attention to Arizona.
That's the big one right here.
The home of the Grand Canyon benefits from vast desert tracts, as well as the canyon itself, making it difficult for an invading force to march. The problem is that Texas has a massive advantage. The almost 31,000 military personnel from Arizona can't do a thing to stop Texas's military, which is almost 6 times stronger.
Ooh, down the right there on their ass.
And with that, Texas arrives at the southeastern border of California,
the battle begins.
Preparing another attack. California has been using the Pacific Fleet to attack Washington as this happens. Again, the overwhelming force of that fleet and its missile strikes win the day. Washington can do little to fight against the Pacific Fleet when its Navy and Coast Guard only have about 26,000 members. Again, California doesn't have to put boots on the ground other than to finalize taking the state, as its Navy and Air Force do the work. With that job done, the Pacific Fleet heads back towards Naval Base San Diego. It's going to be forced into a defensive mode soon enough. Texas plans to invade.
But how though? I mean, they can't even. I guess they could protect like the ports, but like what can't even protect with the boats?
Using the newly taken Arizona as its entry point. That's not the easiest route, though. Arid plains, mountains, and dunes impede the progress of its ground forces. The Sierra Nevada mountain range pushes Texan forces through a choke point into California's south, ideal for the Pacific Fleet to start bombarding them with missiles and aerial firepower. A standoff develops. Texas can pour troops through California's southeast with little resistance on the ground, though the presence of the Pacific Fleet can warn them off. All the while, Florida is advancing from the east.
Okay, let's see what
Florida has.
That is true. That is the bad thing about Texas, is in the middle of everyone else. And if that is like the biggest thing. Is like it's right in the middle.
The 5th largest military presence in
If we get ganked from all sides, that could be a problem.
U.S. with 102,700 personnel. It has a solid mix of Army and Marines, together equaling 31,300 units. Though it's the
also they have a lot of Florida men. They're gonna unleash the Florida men fucking jumping on alligators and shit.
Navy, Coast Guard,
hardcore.
and Air Forces that are the
Floridan Special Forces.
40,400 and 31,000 personnel respectively make up Florida's forces. As mentioned earlier, it also has a powerful civilian army, thanks to more than 500,000 registered firearms being in the state. Much like Texas, Florida will maintain its citizens, keeping them armed and ready to fight against invading forces. Georgia and Alabama are first on the Floridian agenda. Alabama puts up a good fight thanks to its 19,000-strong Army and Marines being almost a match for Florida.
I don't think this thing is calculating attrition, though, is it? It doesn't seem like it's calculating like attrition rates.
Florida's similar ground forces. But while the bay just outside of Alabama's capital, Mobile, gives Alabama quick access to the
what's
Gulf,
this video called? It's called State versus State Who Wins the War. I'll link it to you guys if you want to have the video for later. Send it to your friends.
Florida's superior Navy a direct route to the seat of Alabama. Alabama's 1,300 Navy and Coast Guard fall easily to their 40,000 Floridian counterparts. It looks like
Florida's dick is like fucking Alabama in the ass. Because it's just like just the way it looks.
Days are over. Georgia, however, presents more of a problem for Florida. Its 110-mile coastline might provide plenty of entry points for the Floridian Navy, but the 15 barrier...
They can't use the same dick strat on Georgia that they used on Alabama.
Give Georgia some strategic positions from which they can defend. Additionally, it shares a border with Florida and has 67,800 Army and Marines, compared to Florida's 31,300. How could Florida make up the difference? Well, it's here that Florida's heavily armed citizenry comes into play. 500,000 people defend Florida as Georgia is buffeted by aerial strikes and naval attacks. Eventually, the state falls, though its army puts a big dent in Florida's civilian defenses. With those border states secured, Florida turns its attention
New Florida looks like a sad penis
to Texas. its naval and aerial forces station themselves
Fuck,
in
Texas
the
is gonna
Gulf
have to fight everyone now on both sides. This isn't
Mexico,
good.
as its army marches toward Texas. The ground
This
forces
sucks.
face little resistance as they move through Mississippi and Louisiana,
Fuck.
as Texas has pulled the bulk of its forces to fight against California. So it's not long before Floridian soldiers are approaching the eastern border of Texas.
Texas got cocky. I mean, had to get that buffer zone. So
As this is happening, a great fight is waged between North and South Carolina.
Who's the true
former has
Carolina?
A clear advantage militarily, thanks to having nearly 115,000 military personnel compared to South Carolina's 53,600. The Blue Ridge Mountains in South Carolina's northwestern corner offer it small respite, though they're not enough to stop North Carolina from marching in. The aerial and naval battles are fairly evenly matched, but North Carolina's large contingent of Marine Corps is its X factor. 40,800 Marines versus South Carolina's 8,200 ultimately
that's
leads
not
to a
good.
North Carolina victory. But
Destroyed.
that victory is short-lived. So swept up in fighting South Carolina, North Carolina forgets about Virginia. The latter's mountainous west has helped defend it
what the hell is New York gonna do?
against Tennessee, though that state only has 20,100 military
I see this entire strategy is about building different kinds of dicks.
personnel to begin with. But to its north, North Carolina is vulnerable to incursion from Virginia's 147,000 military personnel. Two evenly matched state militaries collide, though it's Virginia's stronger Navy and Air Force that wins the day. An 84,700 person strong Navy and Coast Guard dominates the coastal plain to North Carolina's
Oh,
east
shit.
and
Virginia
allows
just took
Virginia
over.
to take the state. Tennessee is mopped up soon after, its 13,400 Army and Marine forces being no match for Virginia's
What I
comparable
say? It's all about building different kinds of dicks.
5,500.
Not the
West
great dick
Virginia
of Virginia.
is another easy win for Virginia.
The goal of war is
5,200
not to
military
get fucked in
personnel
your
can't
ass,
do
it's
much
to
against
fuck the other guy
Virginia's
in
over
his.
147,000 strong military.
The dick just hit puberty and grew some hair.
Kentucky soon follows, with Virginia relying on its much stronger 15,800 Air Force to counteract the fact that Kentucky has 42,500 Army members
Now it's
on
a
the
volley.
ground
Now
and
it's
only
a show.
1,400 in their skies.
No, it's this big fat chunky dick.
Meanwhile, Texas is in trouble. Florida is
No,
fighting
not
against its
dude. Actually, though, check it out though. If Florida and Texas combined, they would look like a rifle, right? They should join us. We should join together, and then we look like a gun.
Navy in the Gulf, while the California and Pacific Fleet attacks the troops it's trying to send into California. It's still getting soldiers through despite the 96,100 people California has on the ground. But Texas is losing a lot of people. It's
What? Now we're talking about attrition? This is fucked up. Now we're talking about it.
where the state's X factor comes
son
into
of a-
play. Eventually, Florida has to use its Navy to start landing people in the state, where they face a civilian army of
There
over
it is,
a million
guys.
armed
1
citizens.
million.
Plus,
I feel like it'd be more than a million, honestly. 1 million. I feel like it'd
the
be way
Texas
more than
National
that.
Guard. That's too much for Florida to handle, even with its superior naval
Yes.
power,
Slurp up Florida.
as it only has an army and marine force of 31,300,
Yes.
and its own
Become the rifle. Become the gun.
civilians are isolated within
Become
Florida to
plasma
protect
rifle.
it from attack.
Take 'em
Texas
out.
also has a much larger air force than Florida, allowing it to pepper Florida's Navy with aerial strikes. It's a hard-fought battle, but Texas comes out on top
Yes.
thanks to its
Yes.
civilian forces. And now,
Let's
with
go.
no direct threats, it's able to send National Guard and armed citizens toward California. As all of this has been happening, New York has been consolidating a solid power base to the northeast, though it doesn't have
What are they gonna do in New York? They're gonna cancel our bank accounts. They're gonna freeze all our bank accounts in New York.
largest military
Make it so we can't buy stocks.
of the states, just 46,900 personnel in total. It has benefited from the states with larger militaries fighting among themselves.
Holy shit.
That's left it free to take advantage of its $1.78 trillion economy.
There it is. There it is, guys. I didn't say it. I have to say
Third
it.
only behind Texas and California to keep its soldiers well supplied and capable of taking many of the smaller states that surround it.
Oh
New
my
Hampshire,
God.
Vermont, and Massachusetts all fall quickly to New York, as do Rhode Island and Connecticut. New Jersey puts up more of a fight as it has 24,000
Who
military
cares about soldiers? We have money.
personnel. However, it's been using its 8,900 person strong Air Force to take on Delaware, Maryland,
I feel like everyone around here is gigafuck, though. It's
and
just...
the District of Columbia. Delaware falls
Ooh,
quickly.
that's a big one.
It only has 8,100 personnel, and the 2,100 soldiers it has on the ground can't fend off New Jersey and its Air Force. The latter two are
Yeah, it would be literally like that. It would be like all your bank accounts are frozen and be like, yeah, you know what? Your food is done. Your food is frozen. It'd
more
be
than
over.
capable of putting up a fight against New Jersey, with
I
Maryland
feel like honestly, the more cities you have, the worse off you are in a situation like this. The more big cities that you're reliant on.
47,600
Like the ratio of like big city to like a countryside is kind of off in these places, right?
personnel, which include 14,600 naval personnel and 12,200 Air Force
Maryland
personnel.
and New
Eventually,
Jersey together make a ball sack. I didn't said you thought it.
True.
putting
Maryland's
a
trying
halt
to
to New
form
Jersey's
a dick
attacks.
as well.
However, the 14,600 personnel in the District of Columbia have caused problems as Maryland fought off New Jersey. Though Maryland wins that battle as well, taking a second state, it's severely weakened and can't defend itself against
Dude, DC can't even defend like the fucking Capitol building. Are you kidding me? Against people with no guns. They're absolutely fucked in a situation like this.
the economic powerhouse of New York. The Maryland numbers advantage whittles away, and it eventually falls, though New York is weakened in the process. With those early victories completed, New York is consolidated, surrounded
They weren't expecting the attack. What are you talking about? People told them like, do you guys want some National Guard? Like, let's send some military to help. And they're like, nah, we got this. What are you talking about? They weren't expecting it.
by buffer states. It's going to have to turn its attention to Pennsylvania next, its large neighbor to the south. Back on the West Coast, the war of attrition between Texas and California is finally nearing its end. Through sheer manpower alone, Texas wins the day.
Didn't Pelosi confirm that? I swear to God that she confirmed that she was asked about if she wanted the National Guard or whatever, like extra military forces, and she said no. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did.
Taking California's military bases even under constant naval and aerial attacks. That million-strong
Let's
armed
go.
citizenry proved
Let's go.
to be the deciding factor, allowing Texas to
Yes.
create a meat grinder
Yes.
after those citizens had helped the state fend off Florida. California
Yeah.
is captured, but Texas lost an enormous amount of people in the process. And worse yet, the Pacific Fleet that it now owns isn't going to be especially effective
It's
once
not,
it turns
no,
its
unfortunately.
attention to Middle America. The state also knows that Alaska will need to be on its agenda sooner or later. Though Alaska has just
No,
9 military bases
Just leave
and
them alone for now.
25,100
Why would you attack Alaska right now?
personnel, a ground invasion is impossible.
Yes, it is.
Texas
Don't
or
do it.
whoever else may attack would have to go through neutral Canada.
I mean, it's just another state, right? California, Canada. Like, what's the difference?
Still, the newly captured Pacific Fleet will prove extremely useful when the time comes. For now, Texas consolidates as it watches the Midwest burn. Colorado has become a key player in the battle for America's heartland. The state's X factor is its collection of expansive mountain ranges.
I don't know, man.
15
They eat cow balls in Colorado, so they've got some pretty strong people in there.
in total, with 54 peaks above 14,000 feet. Those mountains have protected it against Texas so far, though the Lone Star
Also, South Park is there.
State has been
They
focusing
have man, bear, pig.
on other states, which means Colorado has had time to send its army on a rampage through the Great Plains. Colorado's power all comes down to the combination of 32,500 Army and Marine soldiers, 15,400 Air Force units, and 2,000 Navy and Coast Guard forces.
I don't think this thing is really factoring in attrition that much, right? Like I feel like you can't just like keep slurping up like the other units and stuff.
Kansas is first on the agenda. Though it has a strong army of its own, 29,400 units total, Colorado's superior Air Force makes a huge difference. It allows Colorado to run coordinated attacks on Kansas soldiers.
It only brought up the attrition when Texas tried to take over California. It was like the only time they brought it up.
Its ground forces free to...
Sorry. It was with Florida. It was with the battle with Florida. That's it, guys. They made a dick.
Its ground forces free to mop up the scraps.
It begins.
Utah and Wyoming offer little competition.
There's the balls.
The latter only has 6,000 military personnel, almost all of whom are in an air force that's less than half the size of Colorado.
Dude, it's like they just keep making dick shapes. It's like, how can I... What am I supposed to say? That's literally all they're doing.
State to easily dominate on the ground. As for Utah, it faces the
it looks even more like
same situation. Its 8,700
I'm not the one saying it's not just me.
Even though its 6,800
how am I supposed to not see this? I'm just saying
aerial support.
I'm just calling it how it is.
3 states down in short succession for Colorado. The state then begins to advance northward. Idaho is next up for Colorado, and it again faces the same fate as Utah and Wyoming. An impressive 4,500-strong Air Force makes up the majority of its military forces. Colorado overwhelms that Air Force with one that's 3 times the size, and its army easily...
Okay, if you guys think if alliances were allowed, do you think it would be even more over for the other states? Or do you think it'd be harder for Texas?
Mops up the 3,800 people Idaho has on the ground. The only thing slowing Colorado down is the size of the states it's taking. Idaho alone is over 83,000 square miles, making it the 14th largest state by landmass. That's a lot of territory for Colorado's advancing army to cover as it moves on to Montana, another massive state. But again, Colorado benefits from facing a state with practically no ground forces to confront it. Just 2,900 soldiers are in Montana's army, rendering its 4,300-strong Air Force practically...
There's more jackalopes in Montana than there are people.
...moot. With some of the largest Mountain West states taken, Colorado turns its attention to its northeastern borders and Nebraska. The home of the Great Plains and the dissected Till Plains, Nebraska has an average elevation of 2,600 feet, but it's mostly flat land. That would be fine if its 7,100-strong Air Force was larger than that of an invader. That isn't the case with Colorado. The state's Air Force has over twice as many members, and it's supporting a far larger army than Nebraska can offer up. The state puts up a slightly better fight than the ones Colorado has faced so far, but it ends up falling just the same. Again, it's down to a lack of boots on the ground. 4,400 infantrymen can't stand up to 33,000. With that, Colorado has secured its eastern,
Colorado's
western,
popping
and
off,
northern
actually.
borders, though it still faces a problem with the depleted Texas to the south. It prepares a strike now. Waiting would give Texas a chance to recuperate and pull in people.
No, what? Dude, is Colorado gonna win? Bullshit.
From the states
this
it's
is
already
bullshit.
taken. Meanwhile, Virginia is buoyed by no longer having to worry about Florida. That leaves it free to focus on some of the smaller states to its west. Through the taken territory of West Virginia, it attacks Ohio. A fairly simple victory is achieved, as Ohio has 32,000 military personnel. Virginia's aerial might has an edge, too, with about 3,000 more units than Ohio's 13,400. With that, Virginia has penned New York into the Northeast, at least in terms of a land invasion. For New York to invade now, it'll have to do so via the Atlantic coast.
They have to take over the Amish.
That particular fact presents a problem for a state that only has 3,700 naval and Coast Guard personnel. But it may not matter. New York finds itself tied up in fighting against
decent oil fields. Yeah, but I think Texas actually probably has the best capability in terms of oil.
The state directly to
in
its
terms
south.
of like refining it and stuff like that.
Granted, the battle doesn't last long, as Pennsylvania has nearly half as many military personnel, with 27,700. Still, the battle is enough to weaken New York.
This is only counting like people. I feel like this model only is counting people.
Have an inroad into Virginia. Worse yet for New York, Virginia is finally taking advantage of its powerful navy. As 51,000 Army and Air Force units move toward Indiana and Michigan, the remaining 96,400 strong Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine units are easily winning the Atlantic Coast battle. New York can't compete. Its 3,700-member Navy and Coast Guard offer little defense to the naval onslaught. Indiana is subsequently obliterated by the invading Virginian army. With just 17,200 military personnel to its name, the state can barely put up much of a fight.
Dude, is the Virginia flag like a person getting domed? This is like some kinky flag. What the fuck?
Despite
What the
almost
fuck, Virginia?
45% of its population owning guns, Virginia's army puts
Virgin
an
my
end
ass.
to any ambitions Indiana might have had of becoming America's strongest state. Michigan suffers the same fate. With a similar-sized force of 15,400, it's still nowhere near strong enough to take on Virginia, resulting in the state
Also, isn't it kind of fucked up how they also have like this area? That's kind of fucked up.
dominating almost the entire East Coast, as well as giving it a chance to delve deeper into the center of America. It'll have that chance soon enough as Colorado mounts its attack on Texas. Colorado's plan is to strike quickly after Texas's defeat of California in order to give it an advantage.
Oh my God, this is
the
so
Lone Star
bullshit.
State lost
This is
tens
so
of
bullshit.
thousands of
See,
its army.
why are they're only counting attrition with Texas? Right, dude, this is discriminatory. This is
as well as several 100,000 of its armed
Oh yeah, by the way, attrition. Like, wait, what about everyone else? What the fuck?
citizens when taking California. The fatigue from the campaign is at a point where Colorado's 50,000 fighting force could stand a chance. The problem for Colorado becomes apparent, however, as it navigates its own mountainous southern regions. The very mountains that had protected it from Texas also served to protect Texas from Colorado.
Nice.
A rough passage through those mountains leads to Colorado's soldiers being exhausted by the time they engage with
Texas suffers attrition in states without Buc-ee's.
And for the first time, Colorado also finds itself on the losing end of the aerial battle. Having more than 15,000 Air Force personnel may have worked while taking much of the neighboring states, but it doesn't
Dude, if Texas
stack
can
up
take Colorado,
to a
it's over.
Texan Air
It's
Force
over.
That's around 3 times
over.
the size. Colorado's invasion attempts turn out to be folly. It's soon defeated, having barely made it
Yes,
past
it's
its
over.
own
It's
southern
over.
mountains. In the meantime, Virginia is left to take on the rest of the American Midwest. Wisconsin falls easily enough, with
Clovers.
its 13,300 military personnel being
Dude, if you're anyone from Wisconsin, isn't it fucked up how Michigan has this area? Like, it's like this fucked up, isn't it? It's like fucked up. It's like not even connected. Not even connected, and they took this over.
no match for Virginia. The same goes for Maine, with just 4,100 military personnel. However, Virginia faces more of a fight when it confronts Illinois and Iowa. The former has to be taken first, as the latter takes advantage of Illinois lying between it and Virginia's roving army. With 42,500 military personnel, Illinois has a solid chance against the weakening Virginia. The problem is that its navy is stationed at Naval Station Great Lakes. They're guarding waters that Virginia isn't going to use. With that issue, Illinois can do little more than use the navy to conduct missile strikes from the waters onto its own territory. That's not enough to stop Virginia as it takes the state.
Okay.
Iowa is destroyed in no time. 10,900 military personnel are no match for Virginia. All the while, Texas watches and waits. Virginia continues its campaign of destruction. Minnesota soon falls too, with a military presence in the state at just 17,700 personnel. Missouri, on the other hand, represents more of a problem. It has 29,800 personnel, with 21,200 of them being Marines and Army soldiers. They fortify the Mississippi River, which makes up most of the eastern border Virginia needs to penetrate, and force the Virginian armies into an attritional battle. Virginia still comes out on top. It has a strong numbers advantage, but it loses thousands of fighters in the process. Those losses aren't enough to stop South and North Dakota from falling, with their militaries of 7,600 and 11,500 respectively. That finally leaves Virginia one place to go next: Texas. As Virginia prepares to attack, Texas has
I don't like this though. It looks like Virginia is mounting Texas. I don't like that.
recuperated and restocked thanks to its strong economy and massive oil reserves. Its Gulf Coast fleet has sailed around Florida and into the Atlantic coast, where it confronts Virginia's Navy at Naval Station Norfolk. As for the Texan ground forces, they may have been depleted, but they're still strong enough in numbers to attack Virginia, especially with the state having expended so many of its soldiers.
Dude, nobody cares about Alaska right now. That's like the last thing on anyone's mind. Again, Hawaii was only like useful because they had like all that military power.
In the Midwest. Texas takes Virginia.
Alaska's too far. It's too far and it would take too long to take over compared to Hawaii. Hawaii would be easy to take over. There's not that much land. It's really easy to take it over.
Right
yeah, Alaska's like the DLC. Exactly.
before the state can launch an attack of its own.
Nice.
All that's left for Texas is to use the Pacific Fleet it captured.
How freaking dumb would this be if Alaska wins in the end? Like, and then because of attrition, everyone was tired. They tried to march through Canada and everyone died in winter.
From California to assault the isolated Alaska. The state puts up a fight, especially with its 11,100 strong Air Force. The rough waters in the Gulf of Alaska also make it difficult for the Pacific Fleet to coordinate attacks. But in the end, that waterborne power is enough, especially when combined with fighter jets and helicopters taking off from the Pacific Fleet's aircraft carriers.
Yep.
Alaska succumbs. And
Rip.
with that, Texas stands victorious.
As if we would stop there and not take Canada as well. I'm just saying. I feel like if this were like a real scenario, Canada would have gotten taken over, 100%.
As the strongest state from the United States. Of course, this is just one of many
Texas
possible
won, so it's a
scenarios
good
that could
video.
happen if America's states turned against one another. Do you think Texas would win? Could another state put up a legitimate challenge to its supremacy?
We wouldn't even have to do much. All we would have to do is offer Canada healthcare, and then we'd win from attrition.
Let us know what you think in the comments. And if this video caught your interest, feel free to check out our video on why everyone is afraid of the US military, or this other video you might like. Thanks for watching, and take care out there.
Texas wins. That's the takeaway from the video, guys. It was proven here. 100% accurate model. Like, there's no way it could be wrong. Perfectly 100% scientific. It's just the math that Texas would win, and it's all, we all know that's the case now. This is a proof of it right here. So I mean, Texas is the best, obviously. 5 and 10 war game. If everyone waited in turns 1v1 each other, it could work out. Yeah, the video wouldn't lie. Like like why would you post a video? Like if you were gonna post a video on YouTube, like obviously, like why would you lie, right? YouTube doesn't lie. Yeah. YouTube is always right, just like Wikipedia.